Okay, I'm recording and I'm doing a video on what is the truth about being a local in Vegas. What is the life like for Vegas locals? And in this video, we're gonna cover some of the weird things about living in the Valley. If you ever thought about living here, if you've ever wondered how people do live out here, I'm gonna give you mostly the weird kind of quirky negatives and stuff that I wish I knew before I moved. My name is Steven, I'm not leaving Las Vegas, I'm a Vegas blogger. I've been here for the better part of 20 years. Continuously. I've done some trips out of the country for a month at a time. I spent close to a year in Lake Tahoe, but I ended up here back in town. And I have a YouTube channel called Not Leaving Las Vegas. So moving to Vegas is weird, and a lot of people are moving to Southern Nevada right now. They're moving to Southern Nevada, they're moving to Florida, they're moving to Texas, they're looking for states that have, I don't know, just a little less crazy, but they're making it as crazy as when where they're leaving. And so this might serve you well, or you might just get some information out of it. Let's just get started with the first thing that everybody wants to know about, and that is the heat and dealing with the heat in the desert. Now, I have a pretty interesting perspective on this because I'm from Calgary, Alberta, Canada originally, and that's one of the coldest parts of North America. And so I've now lived in one of the coldest parts of North America where it's normal in the wintertime for the temperatures to be as cold as minus 35 degrees Celsius. And somewhere around there is when the Fahrenheit and the Celsius scale match up. And to move to a city where it is consistently plus 38 degrees Celsius, which is 108, 109, 110, 115. So what do you find out real fast when you move here? You find out real fast that your life is gonna change. As a matter of fact, I just did a video about this that I launched today on this very same channel. You should subscribe if you're jiving with this video or if you wanna learn more about Vegas. And I did that one from the Strip. But just a few key points from that video. Number one, and there's a really morbid one in here, so plug the kids' ears, or you might have viewer discretion if you had somebody that battled the big C in your life, okay? Because I don't want to trigger you and make you feel sad and remind you of that. But number one, you're not going to spend as much time outside as you think you are. That's just it. And it's going to cause social problems, which I'll talk about in a few minutes if you don't watch yourself and don't, be careful on that. Number two, because it's hot. It's really hot. The hottest part of the day, you might think it's high noon, right? It is not high noon. That is not the hottest part of the day. The hottest part of the day in Southern Nevada is around 3, 4, 5 o'clock. For some reason, the sun hits the globe at a particular angle based on where we are on a latitude and longitudinal scale. Longitudinal, I said it, I own it. That's not a word. It's my video. Click like. And for some reason it gets hot then. And what that means is that for like a large portion of May, June, July, August, and September, maybe even into October if you're having a late summer, it's not gonna work for you to be going outside. You're not gonna spend a ton of time unless it's like today where it's currently 7 o'clock and it is currently 95 degrees and I'm currently in the shade. And currently in the shade, according to my temperature gun right here, my skin temperature is still 92.3 degrees. It's still warm, okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, living in the desert, you're not gonna have the opportunities to do your gardening in most cases. You can do it, it is possible, but it's very difficult. So if you love your gardens, you might wanna consider that when you do your move. Most of the time, well, for no new home builds, you cannot get grass anymore. It has been outlawed, banned, no way, no how. They don't sell sod at the local stores. They do sell the bags of grass seed, but I don't think you can buy sod at a garden center here. It's been banned. Some trees have been banned because they are bad pollinators, and gardening is a real challenge. The other challenge is the water bills. That can be extremely expensive because of water restrictions. And they instituted these new laws, and suddenly people in the last year or two were getting bills where their water was usually maybe $65 a month. In the summertime, now their water is $800 a month. I'm not even kidding you. They don't want people to use too much water, and they give you a watering group and a day. And so your days are set, and you have at your house a sprinkler system if you're living in a house, and it's got a little dial, and you set the days, and it waters and drips on those days. And then there's one day a week you can water your plants a little more, and if you don't, they're going to hit you with like $900 bills. That's the other thing about outside here. So gardening is possible. It's very difficult, but if you have a place and you build some shade and you get some plants that don't need full sun, it's totally plausible. But it's not like you can just go out and just mist all your plants all the time, because then you're going to hit the water stuff and it's just a pain. So that's the heat in Vegas. And by the way, no matter what people tell you, the hottest day ever recorded in Vegas is 117 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not what people who are old timers say. Look, I lived in a cold place and I've lived in a hot place, and you always have some old timer that's like, yep, tell you what, back in the day it was 135 degrees and we walked to school every day, uphill both ways. And then if you're in the cold climate, they're like, tell you what, back in the day it was 55 below in a blizzard and we walked uphill to school both ways. Neither thing's happened, okay? Neither thing's happened, but people have a different perspective for what the actual recorded temperature was. So that's the first thing, that's the weather, that's out of the way. And the other thing that's crazy about being here, as I'm just gonna say it, is we're gonna cover insects, we're gonna cover slot machines everywhere, the psychology, we're gonna cover the S word, where you take your own life, we're gonna cover the education system, we're gonna cover outdoor activities, we're gonna cover all those things. The second thing I want to talk about, though, is definitely the slot machines in those places where you don't usually see slot machines. I remember coming here a long time ago, it was like, what, 2004, going to a regular grocery store and seeing slot machines in the front of the grocery store, and you're looking at it and you're like, what am I even looking at? I mean, I was like 22, 23 at the time. I don't gamble, but I know why these slot machines are in the stores. It's because people are addicted and they have a mental disorder where they're addicted to slot machines. That's just what happens. Gambling is a serious bad thing. Your brain gets addicted to it. You have a chemical response and a dopamine reaction, and there's a whole psychology behind it. And so grocery stores, 7-Elevens, gas stations, local bars and pubs, everywhere you can imagine where there's going to be an adult, you're going to find a slot machine. You're going to find a way to spend your money, and you're going to find a way to lose yourself if you're not completely careful. And that's why some people really shouldn't move to Vegas. If you have addiction in your life, you shouldn't move to Vegas, because the other thing about the slot machines is the drinking and the drugs. And that's a dark thing that nobody tells you about out here. There's a lot of alcohol and a ton of traffic fatalities. And lately, the crime, let's not even talk about that until we cover the alcohol and the drugs. So first of all, California is not too far from Mexico. And I love Mexico. And so I'm gonna have to do this buffer right now so people don't call me a racist somehow, because like, screw you if you're gonna do that. I've lived in Tijuana. The people in Mexico are the nicest, most beautiful, brilliant people in the world. But the cartels, they bring the drugs over, and the drugs end up in places like Vegas and places like Los Angeles, and especially Vegas, because we're a party city. So the drugs are a problem out here. We have problems with fentanyl and other things that'll get you really, really messed up and can kill you on a single dose. And that's a problem because we're in this party city. And so you got to be careful of that. I had friends in the timeshare business, which I nearly lost forever. And some of them I did lose forever. They were living in a weekly hotel and nobody saw them for a week until they did a wellness check, and it turned out that they did a combination of speed and a downer, an 8-ball, I guess it's called, and they died, okay? So you gotta be careful on that. And the drug dealers are really good at knowing how to get people to do drugs. And you know, that's the thing about it. But the alcohol, that's also a problem. We have so many traffic fatalities out here. I think I said it already, but we're in our 100 deadliest days of traffic out here in the valley right now. And what they don't tell you is that there's no last call. You'll find this out real fast, but some places have a last call, which means that if you're, you know, if it's 1 o'clock in the morning, the bar's gonna close at 2, you know, you don't just go from place to place and get more alcohol until you destroy yourself. But out here you do, which is how like Henry Ruggs from the Raiders got himself into trouble. You know, he just drank so much, it was 3 or 4 times the legal limit. He smashed into a lady in her car with her dog at 150 miles an hour in a high-end sports car. Boom, she's gone. But it's not just the professional athletes that can't control themselves, it's everybody. So you can buy alcohol all the time, so you gotta be careful driving. I try to avoid driving at night. The alcohol awareness course they make people do out here, I had a friend that did it. He told me that they say in the course that at any given Friday or Saturday night, 60% of all the drivers on the road in Las Vegas and Southern Nevada are intoxicated. I don't know if that is just trying to scare people or if that's a true stat, but it's a scary one if you think of it. So we've covered the weather, we've covered some of those things like addictions, but the crime that's pinned to those addictions, that seems to be getting worse too. And I hope that this can be solved, but it seems like it's bad everywhere. But just today I was on X, formerly Twitter, and it was trending about crime rates, and they were pointing out cases in Baltimore, Maryland, and Dallas, Texas. Okay, fine, granted, Baltimore's had a bad crime problem for a really long time, and so is Dallas. Is 6 million people in Dallas, Texas. There's like realistically only 1.5 million people actually living in Vegas, 2.3 million in the area, but that's a big area here. Now we're on a trending list with Baltimore and Dallas. Hello, excuse me, what is going on out here?
Well, a coordinated grab-and-go crime at the Apple Store in downtown Summerlin. Thieves taking off with thousands of dollars in electronics. The entire heist was recorded by a customer.
I was a victim of crime when I left my iPad in sight in my car and somebody smashed through it at a Walmart parking lot. I would say the Walmart you'd expect, but not the high-end place. So crime is getting really, really bad out here. So you have to watch yourself and don't put yourself in precarious situations. You just can't. You can't put yourself in a place where you could get hurt or harmed. So know the parts of town. No realtor will tell you this. But, there's crime maps all over. Go look up on Google and figure out where the parts of town are that you don't want to be in, especially after night. And I'll show you them on the live stream. So if I said it before, you should subscribe to the channel. I'm really opening up with you guys on all this kind of stuff. So that's covering some of those strange quirks about being here. There are some positives. Let's talk about a few positives right now because I'm already 11 minutes in and it seems like I'm going to be overtly negative. And some people have clicked out and they're going to leave a comment so I can then say, hey, go to 11 minutes in the video. Positives about being here is like we're hyper close to everything. In a few hours, you can be in Southern California and you can see all that kind of stuff. You can go to Disney, you can go down to San Diego, you can even take a trip to Mexico if you're feeling brave that day. So we're pretty close to everything. We have great areas for hiking and trails that you don't even know about because you think it's all point number one on the weather, but it's not, because you can go to Mount Charleston, which is about 45 minutes to an hour from most parts of town. Mount Charleston is this giant peak. I can't remember how tall. I think it's like well over 10,000 feet. And in the summertime, it's 20 degrees cooler. And in the wintertime, it's 20 degrees cooler, which means snow in the winter, skiing in the winter, and then hiking in the summer. So when it's 110 in the city, it's 85 or 90 in Mount Charleston in the summertime, which is a really cool thing about being here. There's also Red Rock Canyon. There's places like here, which is this little cooling station for the kids. That kind of stuff is really, really good. So there are those positives to be here. There's shows and entertainment. If you live in a city where well, I'll give you an idea, right? We have a friend of ours that wanted my wife to help her buy a Louis Vuitton passport holder. Just a passport holder, a little passport holder. Costs like $400. And she lives in South Dakota. I think it's South Dakota, North Dakota, one of the Dakotas. And she couldn't get this thing there. There's no Louis Vuitton stores where she's from. Well, guess what? You're here. If you ever want to go buy a luxury item, that strip is packed full of them. You can get so many luxury items. You can go to world-class restaurants while you're here. You can get yourself any number of entertainment options while you're here. Want to go on a roller coaster? We have that for you. It's at Circus. Want to go to a football game? We have Allegiant. Want to go to the NHL? Probably your team from your hometown is going to visit here once a year because most of them do, and you can go to T-Mobile. And pretty soon we're going to have baseball, and eventually we're going to have a basketball team. And, so we have that. And you have some of the best stuff in the world out there. And it just involves a short drive down the strip. So those positives are really, really good for if you are a younger person that just wants to do that kind of stuff. But what if you're an older person or somebody who is like a homebody and you just have a small social circle and you've developed that social circle and you have no problems making friends? Is that easy to do while you're here? Now the answer is no, it's not, and that's a major thing that you got to consider while you come out here. See, going back to the first point in this video about the heat and the temperature, it can be very, very difficult in this town to make friends. And it also is coupled with the weird, strange work schedules that you might be on if you come out here. I mean, we had a friend who became so isolated he took his own life. That's another thing we'll talk about in a few minutes, the weird rise in the S word. But let's not get morbid just quite yet. That's coming, trust me. I've done this video 3 times already. So throw me a like and throw me a subscription because now I'm over an hour into what will only be about 20 minutes when I'm done, maybe. No, so making friends is hard here because number one, it's hot. It's super hot in the desert. So you don't go outside during the day as much. You might go outside at night, maybe. Right now, 7 o'clock, it's 93 degrees. It went down 2 degrees. We're good. But you're not going to make many friends if you don't go outside. you're probably not going to know your neighbors. And if you do know your neighbors might be moving a lot. New people come in, new people leave, because this town has this weird breaking in period. I figure you need 2 years to actually stay here to call it home permanently. So some people come in, they can't stand the heat, or they're demons on the gambling and the drugs and the drinking catch up with them, and they just reject and they leave. So new people all the time, plus the work schedules. So many folks work on graveyard weird swing shifts out here, you know? And the big thing in Vegas is like, oh, it's my Friday today, and it's Tuesday. No, it's Tuesday. I appreciate what you're saying, but it's Tuesday. But they might work on weird schedules. So maybe they work from 12 o'clock at night until 8 in the morning, and then they go to their grocery store at 9 o'clock in the morning. They get home, 10, 11, 12, they're sleeping from 12 until like 6 or 7, because that's their schedule. Like they're on a backward schedule from you. So you can feel really isolated. The way to combat this is if you're a person who is a religion, you're Catholic, Protestant, Christian, Jewish, LDS, Muslim, whatever, find that community and join it. There's tons of religious institutions out here. It'll blow your mind how many churches you will see. There's a rumor that I used to believe said that there's more churches per capita to people in Las Vegas than anywhere else in the country. Turns out that's not true, but there are a lot of churches. Or join an organization, if you're not a religious person, that is of interest to you. So join some kind of group with your common interests. You know, make sure that you find somebody. Go to meetup.com, go to Facebook, tap into the groups, type in, you know, Orchids Las Vegas. That's how we discovered the Greater Las Vegas Orchid Society. Or you can find somebody that's doing something and having an organization based on what you like, and make friends with those people, because this is a lonely place to be otherwise. And that's the loneliness. But I think the loneliness, I think it leads into something that is very tragic, which is the high instance of suicides in the valley that we have. We had a friend that took his life. He was going through some stuff and he felt isolated and alone, and he thought he had prostate cancer. Cancer is a big thing out here in the valley, which we'll talk about in a minute. And you know, it was I don't want to talk about it very much, because he was a dear friend of ours. His name was Rick, and he was a wonderful spirit and beautiful soul. But there's studies that show that men especially take their lives more in Vegas than most other places. And it's not like, you know, some over-the-top bombastic thing where people are jumping off the stratosphere, although they have jumped off the stratosphere, and I'm going to make a video on that sensitive type of topic, because it has happened before. So you might want to subscribe if you want me to do that video, and I get some love on this video and I can follow up on it. But it's just people who feel alone and damaged and like they don't have a community around them, when it does exist, but it's just locked indoors because of the heat a lot of the time. Or they get caught up in their demons on that strip and they don't know how to cope with it because people don't have good coping mechanisms. Men are especially susceptible to this in Vegas, because, and other places too, because men, we are taught and trained that we are to be putting the weight of the world on our shoulders and carry all the weights of everybody around us. And that is what the Bible teaches us, and that is the way it should be. But men have to know that there's help out there for men. You know, things like domestic abuse are higher in Southern Nevada because people fight more about money. Probably has a lot to do with the gambling and stuff like this. And it's just something that has to get better in the culture out here. And if it doesn't get better in the culture out here, then it's just going to keep going up. And then the children are having direct effects, and then they learn those cycles, and then they enact those cycles, which is a terrible thing. The other weird thing about here is, you know, going, and it all pins back to the heat. Isn't that weird? It goes back to the heat. The insects out here, it'll trip you out. If you don't like insects, you're going to see them. Welcome to Vegas. I remember coming here with my family circa 1995. It must have been because Windows 95 launched, and I remember vividly for some reason that, because I was way into computers. I was in Vegas at the time, and I saw it on CNN clip, Windows 95, ooh, Rolling Stones, start me up with the start button. Like if you remember any of that, please tell me in the comments below if you remember that. We were at a little place, I think it's called the Boulder Pass or something, I don't know what it's called nowadays, near Hoover Dam. We were in the pool, and there was a scorpion that was clinging to the underside of the pool. My mother freaked out. She was always hypercritical of insects. She hated insects. I mean, we grew up in a cold climate. I think I mentioned that. So we didn't have a lot of insects. Certainly no scorpions where I was from. And some parts of Alberta might have them, but not Calgary, Alberta. And the guy came out from the hotel to capture the scorpion. And she asked, are there scorpions and a lot of scorpions around here? And the guy lied straight to her face. Nope, not usually. That is the bold-faced lie, like right at her. There's a ton of scorpions out here, but only if you have clutter in your yard and you live in a somewhat remote area, although it can happen in regular homes. And I've been bit by a scorpion twice. And the reason I keep telling you to subscribe for these videos is because I don't want this to be a 3-hour diatribe on all my life stories. I want to drip feed this out to you guys when I have a full thought on it. I've been bit by a scorpion twice, so subscribe. I'm going to talk about it because my gosh, what a trip being bit by a scorpion is. But there are black widow spiders, there are cockroaches, there are palmetto bugs, there are insects like crazy. And you see little tiny rodents that run across the desert. Rabbits proliferate and grow out here, so there is some level of wildlife, but the insects are the worst. And the snakes. I've never seen a snake in southern Nevada, but I know that they exist because in the area I used to live in, it had these giant acres of land with nothing on them, and you would walk across that to cut if you're walking to the store and back, and you would see holes that are burrows into the ground. Those are snake burrows. I'm almost 100% positive, and I know that they exist out there. So you gotta be careful, and you gotta watch yourself. And if you don't like insects, you're not gonna like living here, which is definitely a bizarre, weird thing about being in this town. And there's so much more that I think I could possibly add, but I'm losing my light entirely out here. So I will tell you, there are some serious pros about being in Vegas. There are some serious cons about being in Vegas. And some of the kids that are going to the schools out here grew up to be cons because one last thing just got into my head. And there is that morbid thing that I have to talk about right after this, and that is the sad state of education out here. If you have children and you're thinking of moving to Vegas, you have to find a charter school for them, which is it's weird because it's paid for by the government, but it's private education paid for by the government. Or you have to find a private school, and the average tuition on that is about $6,000 to $8,000 a year out here. There's a private school that teaches constitutional types of values, and it's Christian-based. There's private schools that are not religious-based. There's Catholic private schools. Find a private school, because we're like one of the dead last in the entire country on education. And that doesn't make sense, and I'll tell you why. See, cannabis was legalized in southern Nevada, and all of Nevada, mind you, 7 years ago. And in those 7 years, yes, they shut down the schools a year for COVID. The students were locked out of their schools in southern Nevada, like a lot of places. We had a governor who went a little bit too hard on that kind of stuff, in my opinion. I don't know. What was your opinion? Should we have shut down the schools? Tell me in a comment below. I'll know you're watching this far in. But at the same time, these schools were supposed to see every dollar collected from cannabis industry taxes, and they haven't apparently seen that. I see lots of flashy brand new schools, but we have a huge problem with the education system. Not enough teachers out here. I don't know if our salaries are too low or if we're just in a shortage. And the teachers nearly went on strike last year to try to get better wages. So where did all that money go, and why are students so bad out here? But a positive on the education system here is that we have the College of Southern Nevada and we have UNLV. And UNLV you might think is just a place where they'll teach you casino stuff, but it really isn't. They have a good law school, they have a culinary school, they have a hotel resort management type of industry school, they have a great medical school from what I've heard, and lots of alumni, and once in a while we have a good football team, and last year we almost had a good basketball team, but we just don't attract those kinds of workers to town. It really is a blue-collar town if we can consider the casino industry a blue-collar industry, because you know, when Amazon was going to do their expansion, they're going to make a second headquarters. Vegas was in the running at first. We nominated ourselves. We made a pitch to Amazon for Amazon Headquarters 2.0. A lot of cities did this. Cities like Los Angeles, Dallas, Toronto, Canada, Vancouver, Canada, all over the North American continent. And we didn't make the cut. And when Google is going to do something here, we don't make the cut. And when technology comes into play, we get bypassed entirely. And that has a lot to do with our really, really poor primary, secondary, and somewhat blue-collar-ish post-secondary education. We don't got a lot of tech programs at UNLV, although they do apparently have a good social media management course, although I don't think you need to go to college for most things. You know, unless you're a doctor or a lawyer, I don't care what school you go to as long as you can get results. We just don't have that tech sector versus another city like out on the east with MIT, or you know, University of Texas, Texas A&M, whichever school down there is the one that has all the technology built into it. So of course, where does Tesla go? They go to a city where they have ready-made people for graduates. They don't want to import their workers from another place if they don't have to. So that's another problem out here. But like I said, it's a great place, it's a poor place, it's a mediocre place, but it's a place. It's a place with lots of opportunities. So just to close out on this video, I will say this: Vegas has a ton of opportunities. Tons of new people work here. If you have a skill, if you have a trade, if you're willing to get a business license, if you're willing to work really, really hard, you can build something amazing for yourself in this town. This is the last bastion of free enterprise for a lot of people in America, a place that gave me an opportunity to make money on Las Vegas Strip, a place which has seen hopes and dreams live and die in this town, but a place where if you never give up and you never stop pursuing your dream, you're gonna find some level of success. My name is Steven, I'm not leaving Las Vegas. Thanks for taking this journey. If you're still with me, you might want to subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you guys watching, sharing, liking. The last morbid fact is that if you live here for more than a few years, you're gonna know people that went through cancer of the skin. It sucks, it's terrible. But most people I know somebody, at least a few people, and I know 3 or 4, that have had melanoma of the skin cut out of them. Thank God it was not malignant and it didn't take over their whole bodies. But that's what happens when you live in a place where I downloaded an app called Carrot Weather, and Carrot Weather has achievements and challenges. And I accomplished a challenge, an achievement, and it was experience an extreme sun situation. I have news for you, Carrot app. I'm gonna experience that for the next 180 days, 120 days, something like that. So that's the morbid thing about that. You're gonna experience that maybe yourself. I hope you don't. I hope you wear your sunscreen and you wear your clothes and you stay out of the sun. But if you don't experience it directly, you're probably gonna know somebody that gets that horrible experience. And thank God everybody I know survived it. Some people don't. So that's one last morbid thing to close us out. But I appreciate you guys watching, liking, sharing. You're the best part of my video. Now's the time of the video where I say 3, 2, 1, click. I'm gonna post up an alternative version on this on Patreon so you guys can see a version where a bird came into frame and all this extra stuff. I'm gonna say 3, 2, 1, click. 3, 2, 1, find the Patreon links below and click.